Are we going to have prostitution in the fifth dimension? Wow, we have an interesting one today. Prostitution. Now, prostitution is an exchange of money or other favors for sex. But if we look at it this way, every married woman that doesn't have a job is a prostitute. Because if the guy had absolutely no money or nothing else to give, she would not be married. So the way we look at prostitution is very hypocritical. And that's what we are not going to have in the fifth dimension. Hypocrisy. You won't be able to pick and choose which subjects you like and which ones, which subjects are good and which ones are not. For instance, there are many levels to prostitution. And we always, the media, because the media doesn't need drama, it will always, almost always, focus on the lowest level. Those poor girls, usually on drugs, hooked on drugs, that are working the streets, where it isn't very safe as well. And they tell you this is prostitution, and prostitution is dangerous. Yes, if you're working the streets, it's not so safe. But driving a taxi is not that safe either. Now, to the other levels of prostitution. There are so many levels above the streets where women and men get paid very well. And this is what they choose to do while they are still young and beautiful. And the biggest reason a lot of people have a problem with this is because these people are happy. Women have a problem with it the most because, especially married women, down deep inside, they know they are not getting paid enough to be somebody's wife and to put up with her husband's shit. So this woman usually doesn't mind the poor little hookers in the street, because when she looks at them, she feels like she's got it better. But when she looks at women who are happy and make anywhere from $500 to $10,000 a night, that is proof that she is not making enough. And she gets bitter and angry. And she will find excuses like, yes, but there is no intimacy. What is that? What is intimacy? You are faking it anyway. So, I'm not sure if we are going to have prostitution or not in the fifth dimension. I personally think we are. But it might be all the, I'm going to use a cliche here, it might be all the happy hookers that will be working. I don't think we're going to have the poor girls in the street, simply because survival will not be an issue in the fifth dimension. Also, we're going to see the bigger picture. Something like, why is it okay to sell your brains and your muscles, but not your body? And if this is what these women and men want to do, what is your problem with them doing it? And I'm saying this out of experience. On and off, I used to be a prostitute for about 6 years. And apart from one person, I enjoyed every other encounter. There was just one person that I didn't enjoy, and I said, no, I don't want to do this again. Just one person. Are you telling me that in your job you enjoy every single day? Also, a lot of these, what are called high-class prostitutes, sometimes if they go on television, they find excuses like, I need the money, I have to pay my student loans, or I couldn't get a job. I would recommend to these people, stop trying to please the boring people. See, the boring people that live very boring lives can't accept the fact that you could be happy doing this. And you're pleasing them by telling them, well, I have to do it. No, own it. I want to do it. Do you have a problem? If you do have a problem, I'm sorry, but it's your problem. It's not mine. Now, of course, I also did it for the money, because the money was very, very good. But I never said, I need the money. I said, this is what I like doing. That's all there is to it. Now, as the picture says here, I am a woman, I am sassy, classy, intelligent, strong, funny, talented, and so much more. This is what all the women prostitutes I have met were like. All of them. Granted though, because I did not work in the streets, I worked through an agency. I didn't meet the street girls. I have seen them, but I did not get to know them. So I understand that there is a low part of prostitution that is not easy and healthy and happy. Years later, when I left that job and I worked as a waiter in San Francisco, I used to work in one particular restaurant. It was a 24-hour restaurant, and I used to do the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And many nights, I used to get so many of these so-called high-class prostitutes come in after the client. And we used to talk. And let me tell you, those girls were very happy with what they were doing. Also, those girls had a lot to say. They were wise, they were witty, they were funny, they were confident, they were everything a boring housewife is not. Now, if you would like to remain a boring housewife, that's okay. You're not hurting anyone. Keep doing it. But get off your moral high horse of how, oh, these people are afraid of intimacy and they're never going to know love. You know what, honey? One of the biggest, if not the biggest reason for divorce is lack of money. As soon as your husband loses his money, you will go. So don't think for one moment that you have morals and ethics. These girls have much more than you do. And they know much more than you do. Because of the economy these days, there's a lot of these sugar daddies going around with sugar babies. A lot of pretty young girls and guys again are with older men for the money, this is not exactly a 20-minute thing. They spend all day with them, they go out with them, they go shopping with them. And a lot of these sugar daddies pay their rent, buy them clothes, and most importantly, pay for their tuition in university. And a lot of people keep saying, this is prostitution. Okay, let's say it is. What's the problem? I'm not going to sit here and say, no, it's not. Because almost everything is prostitution when there's an exchange. And there is always an exchange for sex. Always. So, what is the problem with older men and women, there's a lot of women that do this too, paying the way of younger, good-looking people? Why are you against someone making money if they have the looks and the body? Is it because you cannot do it? So think about it that way. Personally, I think we will have prostitution in the fifth dimension, but it will be all high class. We simply won't have, again, the street hookers, only because, you see, there's no desperation in the fifth dimension. And with the prostitutes we see in the street, that are a very small percentage of the number of prostitutes that we have in our societies. The ones we see in the street is really the bottom end of it, the desperate end of it. And a lot of people would like to use that as an excuse for why we should not have any kind of prostitution. It's just very hypocritical, and it's not going to work. You can't go against nature. Stop going against nature. Jesus, think a minute before you start rambling on that this is unethical and things like that. Now, another question I love a lot with journalists when they interview a professional prostitute. Of course, I don't think the journalists are that stupid, but you see, they're asking questions that people who actually watch or listen to the journalists would ask. They always ask a question: if you have had a daughter, would you want her to become a prostitute? You know what? First of all, I would never have a child. There are way too many of us on earth. Second, if I did not want her to become a prostitute, she would simply not tell me she is one. That's all. So, do you think that's better? I would rather I knew what my daughter was doing and be there if she has a bad day and she needs a hug. Because if I say, no, I don't want my daughter to ever be a prostitute, she would do it without me knowing. And then she would feel lonely after a bad day. We all have a bad day. I would rather I knew so that I could be there for when she needed someone. So that's my answer to if you had a daughter. I've done many careers in my life. Of course, I'm in my 50s, right? I'm not 29. Many different businesses. And because I enjoy the work I do now so much, and many people say it shows, like when I'm on stage talking in a seminar, they'll come to me during the break and say, I just love how you love your job. And a couple of times, some people have asked, is this the best career you've ever had? I always say, no, it's the second best. My favorite, or the best career I've had, was when I was actually selling my body. And I'm not lying. I loved that career. I loved that the feeling of being wanted, the feeling of someone paying big money for my body. And if I could turn back the clock and make my body the same way as it was in its 20s, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because those are memories that I will cherish for the rest of my existence in this universe. And I'm going to leave it at that.